Something that doesn't really get spoken about enough or acknowledged enough is the fact that if you've got a mental health problem or a disability, or you're going through a tough challenge in your life right now, for example, the loss of a job or having to move house or a death of a loved one, if something's going on in your life, something that doesn't get acknowledged enough is the fact that every other issue is still going. Do you know what I mean? So I think I think it's part of the reason why there's so much stigma around mental illness, for example. People look at people with mental illness and go, well, why can't you just deal with it? Just manage that problem. And I think it's because I think this attitude pervades because they don't realize or don't sort of really internalize the idea that people with a mental illness are dealing with all of the stuff that you're dealing with, but with the added complication of their mental health problem. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, you've got stresses at work, you've got stresses in your relationship, you're struggling for money, you're struggling to, understand your place in the world, all of the issues that a regular person goes through. And then add to that the impact of depression, or add to that the impact of social anxiety or panic attacks or PTSD. You know what I mean? I think that if we take a step back and go, okay, well, this is an added burden. This is an added thing that this person's dealing with. I was thinking about if someone loses a loved one, like, a mother or a spouse or someone that's quite close to them, living together, for example, life still goes on, as in that person still has bills to pay. They still have their children's, obligations to take them to school and to everything else that they've got going on. They've still got to manage all of the other things with the added impact of that death. And, they're dealing with their emotions, they're dealing with the remorse and the regret and the anger and the sadness and all of that sort of stuff. And that night they come home, they still have to feed themselves. They still have to do the shopping. They still have to work out how they're going to afford to put food on the table. They still have to deal with the annoying co-workers. Do you know what I mean? I think it's important to realize that life doesn't stop. If something bad goes wrong, life continues. Life still keeps chugging away, still keeps going. So if you ever hear someone and they're talking about the fact that they're suffering from a mental illness or a disability or an injury or a personal crisis of some sort, be aware that they're suffering from that on top of everything that you're dealing with as well. If your situation's fine, they've got a stress in their life that's on top of everything they're dealing with. And I know that I'm repeating this, and I know some of you will be, well, duh. But I just can't help but escape the feeling that, this is based on what I see people talking about just flippantly or casually about mental health. It's sort of like this disregarding of the person's emotions or issues or problems, in the sense that it's like, well, just deal with whatever's going on. And yeah, people do need to take the actions to see the professionals and the self-help advice and, self-care and all that sort of stuff. Of course they do. But it's important to aware that they're dealing with that as well. They're dealing with these issues on top of what you're going through, or on top of what everyone's going through in terms of the regular human condition. And why this matters, and why maybe you see people with mental illnesses struggling so much, is that there's only so far you can be pushed. And what I mean by that is let's say you've got your regular life stresses, your bills, your work, your house, your family, all that sort of stuff. If one thing goes wrong, you might be able to adapt to it and just sort of keep going. But what if two things go wrong? What if three things go wrong? What if there's a sequence of bad events, right? I know that if I keep applying pressure to your situation, no matter who you are, if I add enough sort of grains of sand onto your problem, if it's like the straw that broke the camel's back, eventually something will you'll get too many problems that it'll all come crashing down and you'll have a mental break. If you've got a mental illness, you've already got a lot more pressure on you. If you suffer from depression, your general outlook on life might be a lot more, well, it will be a lot more low. You'll be struggling to see a positive future. You'll be struggling to have the motivation. So then when you go, well, I'm struggling with money, and the person that isn't suffering from depression is like, well, just get another job, just work harder, just work more. I do it. I work 2 jobs. I work this, blah, 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 blah. it's that seems like a reasonable response in a way until you start thinking it's like, well, their brain is literally restricting them. It's literally stopping them from doing that. Or if someone's got a panic attack and they're sad about, so like an anxiety condition, and they're sad about not having that closer friendships, or not having that deeper friendships, or that they can't go out to a certain event. It's like, well, just suck it up and go. Just deal. Just, go out with the friends. Just make friends. Just do these things that I do all the time. I managed to do this. Why can't you? It's like, well, they can't, because they've got all of this extra stress and extra pressure. And when they go to take these actions, they struggle. They have all of these extra concerns that regular people, or people that aren't suffering from that condition, don't have. And there's many examples across every sort of different physical, mental condition, as well as different life circumstances. But the point I'm trying to drive at is that we all need to be aware that it's hard, and these conditions actually add a like an extra level of stress to someone, to our normal level of functioning. So I know a lot of people are sort of on the borderline of surviving and surviving and sort of getting by in today's day and age. We're all sort of struggling financially. We're struggling to maintain the job and deal with the work stress and all that sort of stuff. Add a little bit of pressure of mental illness. Add a little bit of pressure of, a family breakdown, divorce, breakup, having to move, or a death. Add a little bit of stress from chronic pain. And the situation just gets harder and harder and harder to manage. So basically what I'm saying is, let's just have the compassion to try and sort of acknowledge that when someone is going through a stressful time, or an illness or a disability, they really need support, because they're dealing with all the stuff that you're dealing with and more. And I suppose a side note, or an addition to this, is particularly for mental illness, let's say someone's going through a crisis point, they're suicidal or they're self-harming, right? Just because they let's say like they're no longer going through, like you've helped them through that recovery, or they've gotten through that problem area, and they're no longer suicidal, they're no longer literally cutting their wrists. They're still struggling to deal with, they're not better yet. They're still struggling. They're still struggling with their mental afflictions. They're still struggling to recover, as well as everything else that they're dealing with. They're still thinking about work stress. They're still thinking about money. They're still thinking about, relationship problems. They're still thinking about all of the things that you're thinking about, and they're thinking about their recovery from the mental illness, and they're worried about falling back down to that dark hole of depression and suicide. Recovery is a long-term process. So let's just be compassionate and sort of open up our understanding to everyone that's, no matter where we are. If you can relate to this, please comment below. And if you like what I'm doing here, please like, share, and subscribe. It lets me know that you're enjoying this, and it'll help spread the word. Thank you.